Why do they do it? Goddamn kids. They'd do anything for Halloween.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bare Metal Gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Tim, joined here by the other guy who's, I don't know, he's here. Andrew.
Yeah, well, what? Huh?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is it time to do the thing, huh?
Yes, yep.
Oh. I was just napping during your boring intro. Next time I'm doing it.
My intros are fine. Fine. Hey, so anyway, so this is our what was the name of the first episode? I completely forgot. I don't know why.
It was
all right. So this is episode 7, the horror part 2. So, and this is the second part of our Halloween scary spooky themed episodes we've been doing for the month of October.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I have been binge watching horror movies. Treated myself to renewing my Shudder subscription for the month, and have been getting some serious value out of that.
Oh yeah, I did the same actually. We I think you mentioned that last episode, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then I went and did it too. So
hey, there you go. No, I had an annual subscription for a long time, and then like that, I let it lapse because I was like, I don't really watch it that much, and then this time of year struck, and I'm like, yeah, I totally want to watch horror movies, and it happened to coincide with my wife being out of town, and she's not a fan of horror movies, as I think I mentioned previously. Doesn't even like hearing them in the house, so took advantage of that. And I've seen. I'll tell you what, coming out the other side, I've seen some shit. Let me tell you.
Yeah, you've seen some things.
So,
I have too, and not to, we're not sponsored by Shudder or anything, but like seriously, you get like a week free, and then it's $5 a month, and you don't have to like get locked down to any specific number of months. You can literally just do it for a month and be done.
Yeah.
And you can watch so much shit in that month if you want to.
It's crazy. And one of the things again, we are not sponsored by them. We're just big fans and love the service. But one of the things I really enjoy about it is that they are not. So a lot of video services like YouTube or not YouTube, Netflix, their content they want it to be like, most of the time it's going to be HD, and if there's no HD version available of something, they won't show it. Shudder doesn't care so much. Shudder is like, the best version of this movie exists on VHS, and that's what we've uploaded. So
yes. Yeah, and I can honestly I can appreciate that. Yeah,
because it's like this is a horror movie. It's a horror movie that, and I should also say that they don't just necessarily do bulk buys of catalogs. They actually do a lot of curation to make sure that the stuff they're putting up there is actually decent. And there's some turds, but there's always turds. It's the horror genre. It's not the most highbrow of all of the genres on there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's sure there's an argument for having the highest quality available and all that. And you made one actually. You did a great job explaining why the 4K version of Halloween might be worth checking out for some people. But at the same time, there is something. Hey, get out of there! Dog snuck in here, is eating cat food. There's something to be said about. You
put peanut butter on your junk, the dog's gonna come around. You know this.
Yes, I do. We weren't going to talk about that on the show. No, that's disgusting. But yeah, there's, as we were talking about before, also there's like something kind of special and fun about the VHS format, and even when it's like emulated through fake tracking lines and things like that, like in footage, like I dig that kind of stuff. Most recent example that I can think of, well, I guess something else we're going to have to talk about at some point on this episode.
Mandy, we're talking about Mandy. Is that what you're?
Yeah,
No.
Mandy and the Last Drive-In, at least the first episode of that.
Oh yeah, never get about the Last Drive-In because I watch every episode.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, I'm that guy.
Yeah, I didn't do every episode, but I did several.
Okay.
But I was gonna say the game, the Friday the 13th game, the new one that came out. They have the splash screen that you always get at the start of a game where you get all the company logos and stuff and the engine logos and all that shit. Well, they did that, but in like this brilliant old VHS looking format, complete with like the drive-in movie, like the sound kind of warbling in and out, that kind of thing. Really well done. And it just kind of, I'll talk more about that game later, but I just, again,
Awesome.
to reiterate my point, I love that kind of shit. I eat it up. So yeah, I can appreciate watching like a crusty old version of a film if that's the only way to see it.
Totally.
Yeah. I was going to say, sorry.
What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I'm totally bringing up the flow here, but I got some gaming shit to cover if we want to do that before we get into our full horror mode here.
Well, that's fair. Gaming is in the title of the show. I feel like we're obligated slightly to speak on the subject.
Right. Yeah, a little bit. I guess we can talk about fucking video games.
We should just call it bare metal friending.
Yeah, or just bare ass metal or bare
ass metals.
Bare metal ass.
Hey, clearly you've been reading my Star Trek: The Next Generation fan fiction
with 7 of 9 and Data.
Yeah,
awesome. In all seriousness, Soul Calibur 6 is worth talking about.
Which I haven't bought because why add it to the pile of games I'll never play?
Yeah, I know that.
Eventually I will. It's the $60 price tag that.
Sure. No, I totally get that, and that's how I feel about a lot of games, but this wasn't one of them. So I jumped in, and that one I like it. I think it's really good. It's the best one they've made since 2. Yeah, I dig it. I guess
bold statement, sir.
Yeah, I know. There is some controversy among the community over, I think it's called the reversal edge mechanic.
Sure.
Have you heard about that?
I have, and I understand it because like they've was it Arc System Works games have always had those kinds of mechanics, and they've always been accused of just basically breaking gameplay. And it's a similar kind of situation here. Yeah.
And if you're listening and you're not sure what it is, it's basically like a thing where if you played one of the NetherRealm games, like the Mortal Kombat versus DC, where they're like, the action is broken up by these moments where they're like fighting through walls and in the air and stuff like that, right? Or that kind of thing. This is like that in that it's a defensive maneuver. I guess you can do it offensively, but I would only really think about doing it defensively. Where if somebody's just wailing on you, you can kind of absorb a hit and do this move that puts you into a like sort of standoff that has like a rock, paper, scissors kind of functionality to it. So the characters are like, blown back away from each other a little bit, and they both charge toward each other. And you got to, pick, okay, kick button, horizontal button, vertical button. And, it's that whole rock, paper, scissors thing I mentioned where, each one is strong to one and weak to another. So,
right. And I don't mind that. I mean, that, honestly, it's, I think things like that are what the fighting game genre needs to evolve. Everybody talks about, oh, there's not enough fighting games. And then, the first bit of feedback to that is people are always like, well, they're so, like indecipherable, like for new people, they have a hell of a hard time getting into it. And talking about Arc System Works again, that's something I think that they dealt with in the Persona fighting game amazingly well, was kind of introducing that like noob mode, and I'm not saying like obviously Soul Calibur, doesn't have that, but I think this is another one of those ways to make the game more approachable and accessible for people because Soul Calibur is renowned. I mean, dude, especially when you get someone who's just spamming Nightmare like crazy. Or what's his name? Like was it Lee Long or whoever his son's is in the later installments? With the guy the nunchucks, Maxi. Like you can just high level players can just get on a roll with those characters and just demolish you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So this allows people to actually stand a chance if they're not high level play.
Yeah, I like it. It's cinematic looking too. It looks cool, right? And I can certainly see, I can understand the arguments and stuff about it breaking things up or whatever. I get it. Like, I'm not saying you have to love it, but it doesn't, it's something that doesn't bother me. And I see it as like another, like you just said, another way for new players to kind of get into it and have
Yeah.
another line of defense against just getting steamrolled, which can just turn people off from
Yeah.
fighting games so quickly,
And it's better than the super combo spamming that was happening in part 5.
Yeah, a lot of my complaints, honestly, about the Soul Calibur series over the years have been more about like the characters and like some of the designs, and some of the changes to the moveset, more so than like the overall picture of the mechanics, right? Like, it really bothered me in 5 that Kulik basically became Edgemaster, which is like this character who he's like the Mukujin from the Tekken series, right? Every round he adopts a different style, and it's just randomized from the rest of the roster, so you never really know who you're going to play as.
Yeah.
And Keelik was my main for like every game before that. He's a dude with like the long staff, and all the way back to Soul Calibur 1. And like, that was, I literally have a I literally have a time where I sat down with a friend and we played like 105 matches in a row. And it was just Keelik versus Keelik, because it was the guy who both of us were good at. And it ended in 53-52, literally.
That's pretty
I
good.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I played the shit out of that game, and that's been my character the whole time. And so when 5 came along and they replaced him with this, like the staff player in the game had new moves, and then on top of that, I just hated the design. It was like this kid who had like a monkey tail, and like he was basically like the Dragon Ball, like, Saiyan template, right? Like, oh, he's got a monkey tail and he's hungry all the time. Oh, there he is eating a turkey leg, I just like, I fucking hated that. So they made some other changes to some of the other characters and stuff too that I didn't really care for, and I've been waiting for like Nightmare, for example, for them to get his armor right, because it's always hit and miss every game whether or not his armor is going to look stupid or if it's going to look amazing like it did.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes it looks like he's wearing just crushed bugs.
Yeah,
strapped to him.
Yeah, and Soul Calibur 6 gets everything right that I care about, and not only that, but like, it's like they went back to the original game and they said, we're going to do all of these little things for like longtime fans that they'll pick up on, that like the average player isn't going to know about or notice or care about or anything, but like people like me who've been with it for that long are going to recognize, like, hey, this stage that I'm fighting on, this is Sophidia's stage from the first game, just kind of reimagined, and like the music is a new mix of that song, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And like, you pick up on those things, and I appreciate that. Or like, this outfit is a callback to this installment, this character's player 2 outfit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All of those things. And it just hits all those great nostalgia notes without just being like a complete copy of the first game. And so I really like it for that. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think about, but I mean, the Soul Calibur, this is not including Soul Edge, but Soul Calibur, it's officially 20 years at this point.
Yeah, damn, I guess it is, huh?
Yeah. Originally in the arcades in 1998,
Right.
came to the Dreamcast in 99.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy to think about. It's gonna be
Isn't
20
it?
years next year from the Dreamcast version.
There's kids playing this game. This is their first Soul Calibur game.
Yeah, I know.
And, it's one of the things I'm always really careful to point out to, running in the circles we do. I have a lot of friends that are very into retro gaming and stuff like that, and they always, they always bitch about various things, and I'm like, listen, you got to remember, every console, every game, that's someone's first console, that's someone's first game.
Yeah,
and you gotta introduce new stuff to keep it fresh, because otherwise, why we bothered?
Totally, yeah. And I'm actually really glad you made that point, because it segs perfectly into something else I want to talk about. I went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo this past weekend.
Yeah, which, man, holy shit! I remember when we first went to that. I think it was like the second or third year it had been going. The first time I went back in, I think, 2014, and wow, like, that thing has changed. It's huge now.
Yeah, it's definitely getting a little bit bigger every year. It's spilling out. Like, the vendor area now has rooms outside of the main hall, that I didn't even get to this year because I just kind of forgot about them.
Yeah, I just remember the last time we went, which had to have been, God, that had to have been October of 2015 was the last time we went.
I think that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah, that would have been right. And I remember they had the like the giant bins of just random shit that was like $1, and it was like a ball pit of disease that everybody dove into. And like,
still there.
It's probably all the same shit.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that's a particular vendor who does that every year. I mean, you find it at some of the other booths too, but like the big ball pit looking thing that you remember, that's like a real specific vendor who's been doing that like every year that I've gone. So
yeah, it's pretty much where rock band instruments go to die.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. But your comment a bit ago about every game, every console, it's like somebody's first time playing that game or their first generation or whatever. So they have a lot of arcade machines at Portland Retro Gaming Expo and a lot of pinball machines and stuff, and in addition to the huge vendor area. And this year I went knowing that I was going to look for Carnival and want to play that, which I did. But I also knew that the sound was probably going to be fucking down like it has been every goddamn year, which is a criminal act. All right. Like the music is so good in that game. The sound,
like there should be war crime trials about that.
Yeah. I even tweeted the stupid account and begged them to like turn the volume up on that thing on Friday night, just knowing I was going to be there the next day, but whatever. But I also went hoping that, Gauntlet Dark Legacy would be there again, which I've seen in the past, right?
Yeah,
I love that game. I've got a video on my YouTube channel where I play it, but I'm solo because it's just local on a PS2, and I don't have people over at the time or anything, right? So
I've been rocking that shit on my original Xbox. I got really into it. I lost a whole day to it.
Oh wow!
It's like this game's so fucking playable. It's so good, isn't
it? Though
it really is. Like, man, it's like just give me an HD version of Legacy. Or and then like the Dark Legacy. I guess you could do just Dark Legacy at this point.
Yeah.
But just make an HD version of that. Just put it up.
Yeah.
Charge me $10. I'll buy it. I'll happily buy it. Make it so that we can play together on it.
I know. Yeah, I would love to see that. And I've been like waiting for something like that. And I know they put out Gauntlet Slayer a few years ago, but that just wasn't really the same.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And Diablo 3 has been like a decent stand-in for that kind of a fix. Honestly, it's very arcadey, but
totally, yeah.
Yeah, but Gauntlet Dark Legacy is cool, and it's got the announcer and the stuff that I've not seen such bravery, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, finish story.
Yeah. So anyway, I walked up to the machine and there's two kids on it, and they got to be, I'm gonna guess late teens, maybe mid teens, and they just look a little older, right? Somewhere in that range. And there's two of them playing, and obviously the machine fits 4 players. So I say, hey, you guys mind if I jump in? They go, oh, thank God, please do. We've been playing 3 players, switching off who has to control the third player because we've been waiting for somebody to come along. So they've got 3 players going, and okay, I hop in. I'm the blue sorceress. Okay, that's cool. All right, so we start playing, and I start playing with them rather, and it becomes apparent to me really quickly that like they don't really know how the game works, which was really crazy to figure out because okay, they're dragging along an extra player, right? Like switching off. Okay, now you control it. Now you bring them along. Right? And they're going through all that effort for a game that they're not really that familiar with. So like. They figured out that you gotta like crush the spawn points basically from all the enemies, but like they didn't know about the hitting turbo and attack at the same time to like unleash like your super move or whatever.
Right.
Or if you're like the archer, it's BFG, or if you're the sorceress, it's like what is it, Book of the Dead or something like that, right? You raise up all these skeletons out of the ground, they come lurching forward, grabbing everything in their path. So they didn't know about that stuff. They didn't know how to combat death either, which is critical because death can fuck you up so bad in that game, right? You find this, if you're not familiar, listeners, it's like a statue of the Grim Reaper. And if you accidentally trigger him, he comes alive and he seeks out like the nearest player, and then he'll just drain HP from you, like you're just leaking it, right? Like
and I think he takes up to like early levels he takes up to like 250 and then goes away. Yeah, 250 it's murder. Like that's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not trivial amounts of health. Anyway,
yeah. Like I think if you put a quarter in or something like that, you start with like 500 health, right? So that's like a lot. But they didn't know that if you have like a magic potion handy, you just detonate that thing and he goes away. So I introduced them to that rule, and just like some other basic mechanics and stuff. And it dawned on me like these guys, they're just. I was like, hey guys, like, have you really played this before? And they're like, no. They're just hanging out playing this game because it looked cool. It was like they saw it was 4-player. They saw that it had like the fantasy, RPG kind of look. One of them said that like the warrior reminded him of Skyrim or something. So I was like, okay,
yeah, that's weird.
yeah, right. So yeah, they were playing, and I kind of taught them some things, and it just kind of dawned on me, like, man, I'm 38 years old, and this game is like 20 years old to me, but it's brand new to these dudes for the 2018 is their first time playing it, and they're teenagers. So yeah,
and it's and again, I feel like an old bastard, but I mean we're about the same age, and I think it's important for people to understand, like, they're just video games. It's like it's the fact. I mean, they don't get so precious about them.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I mean, I kind of, yeah. You don't have to go much farther with that. I think it's said enough. But yeah, Portland Retro Gaming Expo, a lot of fun. I look forward to going again next year. Maybe you can fly out here, hint, hint. And
well, I was just thinking, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I wish I could go there with Andrew. But yeah, I mean, maybe next year we'll see what's going on.
Yeah,
maybe we could actually get a table. I could sell some stuff and.
I know. I thought about. I actually looked into that. It was more money to get a small booth. Like the smallest booth was more money than I could have possibly made from selling my shit. So,
like, and I there's an artist that I Twitter know, that she had a table there for the first time, and I don't know how it went, but there's another guy that I Twitter know him, but like we actually like talk. So I guess technically we're friends, like in 2018, that counts. Rusty Shackles, I met him at, I knew him on Twitter for a while, but I finally got to meet him in person at the last Midwest Gaming Classic. And
cool.
He was the only artist that had a table there. And he, I kind of, I checked in with him over the course of the weekend, and he was like, this is the best show ever. He's like, money-wise, he's like, this is the best show I've ever had. He's like,
nice.
People buying his stuff like crazy, and he has a really specific thing. Like he's done a lot of stuff for One Up, he's done a lot of stuff for like various podcasts. I think he just did something for the Retronauts, and he it's really specific. Like he does a lot of video game stuff. Like he does the covers of all of the Hardcore Gaming 101 books.
Okay, yeah.
So I kind of want to bug him on Twitter and be like, man, you should go to Portland Retro. So yeah, maybe start a comic nerd revolution.
There is a surprising amount of artists at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and yeah, I haven't been to Midwest Gaming Classic since 2013.
Maybe you should fly here for that.
Yeah, I know. I would love to go. I honestly would.
That's a much more manageable show than PGRE. Oh, excuse me, or PRG. Oh man, jeez, God, the bourbon's just kicking my ass tonight. Anyway, yeah, no, it's some, yeah. I mean, the thing with you see a lot of the artists there. It's kind of the same thing you see at a lot of shows. Like the last show I was at. I'm sitting there, with all my studio mates, and I'm sitting next to kind of the head of the studio, and we're friends, and he's been in the business for many, many years, many awards, has his own books, and we're just kind of looking around and we were talking, like there's you see so many booths where it's like it's one artist selling, like just have a wall of prints behind them, and it's almost like they're just drawing whatever they think will be popular.
Oh, totally.
Like, and there's like a lot of mashups, and the skill levels for it are all over the map. I've seen people that are just incredibly accomplished artists, and this is just what they do to make money. But I've also seen a lot of people that's like, you can tell they're new, they're starting out, they're still figuring out, what they're doing. And, I it's what I wonder is like when you see at shows like this, I think that attracts a lot of those people, because they're like, hey, look at all of my Bowsette, got for sale.
Yeah, there was a handful of those at Portland.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, and that's the problem, is when you go to those kinds of things, it's like I I don't really have a lot of video game related stuff in my repertoire. It's mostly like I do
Yeah.
stuff for companies and or comics and things like that, and it's not really video game related, so I don't know how it would play.
Right. Yeah, it might do better than you might think. I don't know. There's a good mix of stuff that I saw just this past weekend at the show, like video game stuff, but then also like just kind of loosely related, like fantasy stuff or like comic book looking kind of stuff, right? So I don't know. I think the scene.
I should just illustrate my Shaq Fu fanfic.
Yes.
I got a whole head canon around Shaq Fu. I super don't. I'm just kidding. I don't.
No, I was going to say it's a really underserved market. But yeah, no, that show gets a little bigger every year, I think. And so, there's certainly room to see different, more than just like you said, hey, Bowsette's trending on Twitter, so I'll go with like a dozen different versions of that, in a print that people can buy. So, but yeah, that was my weekend.
Shit's getting perverted. That shit's getting real perverted.
Oh, it always does. Always. And the Nintendo stuff, I don't know what it is, man. Nintendo fans are kind of the worst, right? Like, I like the Smash Brothers series, but I don't like to talk about Smash Brothers to Smash Brothers fans. And yeah. They were waiting for their moment in the sun with like something sexy, but also Nintendo branded. And even though it's unofficial, now they've got it with Bowsette and Boozette, and they're just running wild. They're going ham with it, man. They're just I didn't know
Boozette was a thing. I don't know if I want to look that up.
Oh, I think it's superior to Bowsette, but I guess it's all a matter of taste. But
I'm not going to use the term taste when we're talking about Bowsette and Boozette. Okay, like that's not a thing. Whoa, wow! Don't search for that with Safe Search off. Holy shit!
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I know what I'm doing after we're done with the show.
Oh man, jeez. So yeah.
Cool. Oh, hey, Forza. We should talk about Forza really quick.
Sure, let's talk about Forza.
I thought
we talked about it to death in the last episode with the demo and all that.
Just the demo. All I wanted to do is follow up and just say that the full version's great. It's what I expected. And as far as like, what the complete package is, being new to that series, being new to the Horizon series, like I'm not really familiar with the whole like open world, like here's a map and here's all the things dotted on it that you can go do.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it. I play it kind of differently than what I suspect the hardcore, like dedicated players will play it like, in that I kind of look for the quick, like Sega Rally, Daytona USA sort of experience, right? I get on, I open up the map. I look for like, what do I feel like doing today? Do I want off-road? Do I want on-road? Okay, I found my event that has whichever thing I'm looking for. I drive to it through the open world, which is fun, just like plow through shit or maybe stick to the road, however I'm feeling. Do the event, enjoy it, play for like half hour to an hour, get my fix, and I'm good, right? And I like it. It just seems like there's so much stuff to do in it that I might never run out. I wish there were more showcase events because those are amazing. But maybe more of those will come in time. I don't know. I don't know, man. I like it. As it is right now, and without any DLC or anything, it just seems huge. Like I could play it forever. And if I want to play a good racing game that looks pretty and feels good and has awesome music and stuff, there it is waiting for me.
Right. And like always, I haven't bought it yet because I just simply won't play it. But obviously it's very super cool. I had a lot of fun with the demo.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what it makes me think about is like, man, it just makes me wish that Namco would come out with a new Ridge Racer. And I don't mean like a Ridge Racer, because obviously we had Ridge Racer 6, we had Ridge Racer 7. We had that weird Ridge Racer game they made.
Where you like busted through stuff.
Yeah, it was like a burnout turbo. Ridge Racer. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I really want? I just want them to sit down and say, hey, let's remake Ridge Racer 4.
Yes, R4 was so great.
Yeah, like let's just do that. And as a bonus, here's Ridge Racer Revolution running in the same engine.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And I'm in. Great. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason R4 is one of the games that they picked to be on the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah.
Console in December.
I want to replay it, But I worry every time I revisit R4. I just have memories of that game just being mind-blowingly beautiful. And I'll tell you, those rose-tinted glasses, they wear off real quick when you actually fire that game back up.
I don't know, man. I played it a couple of years ago on a plane ride, and I got through the whole campaign in the time of that plane ride, and I loved it. And it still looked good to me. It sounded good. You know, you hear Into Blue come on or whatever, and you know, you're playing on. Yeah, that too. Yeah, it was good. It was a good experience, and I know it. Like, you know, yeah, it's obviously 20 years old now.
This is crazy.
I know, but I thought it aged really well. So
yeah,
still holds up, man.
It's true. So yeah, man, there's games. Getting more games. I don't have any games. I haven't really touched any games. I've thought about buying games. I thought about I was like, oh yeah, the Capcom beat 'em up collection. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mega Man 11. I'll play the demo, and I'm like, I'm just not connected with this.
Sure.
I don't know what it is. So yeah, been kind of a dud for me for games since the last episode.
Sure, and that's okay. You know, I mean, you don't always have to.
Is it okay?
I mean, you don't have to. That's the one thing that kind of bothers me about gaming culture sometimes is it's very like cult of the new. And so if you aren't playing like the latest, newest thing, then you're like not in the cool kids club or whatever, or like you don't, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it feels like that, you know, there's a lot of
I'll tell you, Red Dead Redemption 2
mm-hmm.
is the closest I've ever been to actually wanting to play a Rockstar game.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. I'm looking at it, I'm just like, man, I don't know. I look like that looks like a game I could get into. I never played the first one, and I've never played any GTA game. But I'm I'm looking at this I'm looking at this going like, man, I don't know. I like cowboys. That looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I have a handful of friends who are jumping on that, and they're real hot and bothered for it. But I'm kind of on the other end of it, honestly. I played Red Dead Redemption 1 all the way through, finished it, and while I liked, there's quite a bit of it to like there, right? I liked the ending a lot in particular. I liked one of the characters, Bonnie. Anytime you're interacting with her, she's this lady who kind of owns some farmland and a ranch out there, and you start the game, I think, doing like real innocent stuff, like wrangling cattle for her and that kind of thing. You're partnered with her. I can't remember everything super crystal clear, but I kind of remember like needing to repay a debt to her because maybe she like took care of you for a little bit or something like that. And yeah, that Western, I really like Westerns in general and that kind of feel. So you would think that like I'd be all excited about this new game too. But the thing that I hate about Rockstar games is that every single game you are inevitably going to be partnered with characters that I just fucking hate and don't believe that my player character would ever have anything to do with. Right.
Sure.
And in Red Dead Redemption 1, you go to Mexico at one point. And when you're down there, you might be just north of Mexico. I can't remember where you meet this guy exactly, but I associate it in my memory with being right around the time when you do cross the border and go into Mexico. You meet this guy who is just like, I don't know if he's just supposed to be like the comic relief of the game or whatever, but like he's like some kind of grave robber or something, and there's a lot of jokes about fucking corpses and stuff. And the guy
it's problematic, you would say.
It's not even that. It's not that I'm offended by jokes about fucking corpses or whatever, right? Like, I mean,
I'm all about fucking dead people. It's not,
right.
Don't get me wrong.
You can't be a White Zombie fan or a Rob Zombie fan without having heard a thing or two about like, you know, corpses getting boots knocked or whatever. But the character that they wrote for Red Dead that is, you know, making these jokes, like he's just unlikable. And I get that he might be supposed to be that way, but like everything about him, I just hated. And I didn't buy for a second that my character would have ever worked with him, no matter how desperate the situation or what he needed. Right. And that's been the case in every one of those games. There's always somebody, every GTA game, there's always somebody that they pair you with where it's just like, no, I don't see this character doing that, you know?
So it's like a Rob Zombie movie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually. And then the GTA games in particular are really not offensive as in like I'm offended by that, but offensive as in like they're just full of dumb chuckle fuck humor that I hate. Like I just like, oh, you think that's so funny, huh? Like you're I don't know. Words fail me at the moment, but the just Rockstar's writing in general can really turn me off sometimes. Sometimes it's great, other times it just sucks fucking ass. It's not because I'm some like sensitive, you know, whatever. Like, dude, I love me some offensive jokes sometimes. It's not that at all. It's just, you know, I don't know. I know it's a podcast. I'm supposed to be eloquent and know how to speak.
What?
But I can't do it.
That's when. If that was a prerequisite, I should not be allowed on this thing.
Right.
I need to go.
You chose your partner poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah. So I think I'm out for Red Dead 2. You know, we'll see. Maybe I'll get suckered in. I watched a commercial. My wife and I were watching what was it? I think it was The Walking Dead the other night, and a commercial for Red Dead 2 came on, and I was like, man, that does look good. And
You're still hanging in there on that Walking Dead, huh?
You know what? At this point, it's because it's a train wreck, and we just kind of want to see. Like, we know that the main character, Rick Grimes, is leaving the show. The actor's name is Andrew Lincoln. He's apparently leaving this season. The way that they've handled that and the way that the show itself is like kind of using it as a reason for you to keep watching is just so bizarre.
Yeah.
That we just kind of can't stop at this point. We're just like, okay, we're going to see this through, and then I'm pretty sure we're done. So
yeah, once it becomes the Daryl show.
Yeah.
Which it kind of already is.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it hasn't been good for some time. Like this, talk about squandered potential, man. But whatever. I guess that's a whole discussion.
I don't know, man. The first 4 seasons were pretty good, and then it just kind of.
See, I think there are later seasons that were pretty good and had some really shining moments and stuff. But then there's always that stuff that happens on the show that reminds you that, like, yeah, this is not on the tier of like a Breaking Bad or you know, a Game of Thrones or one of those like other shows. It's just not on that level, and it's
needs
like
more dragons and titties. That's what it needs.
Yeah. No, I just mean that it's like the show just has to remind you, like, oh, AMC can't stop themselves from fucking with this show. You know, and also we're doing our best here with the budget that we've got, and also like a revolving door of staff members here behind the scenes,
right?
And showrunners and stuff. Like, we're trying, but you know, meddling and fuckery going on, but you know, whatever. It's just, yeah.
That should have been the name of our podcast: meddling and fuckery.
Is it too late to restart?
It's not too late. We can totally change the name of the podcast. No one's gonna give a fuck. Nobody's listening.
All right, man. Should we do this thing with the movies, with the horror movies, and possibly the games?
Let's. I really want to hit on this stuff I've watched since last episode list.
Yes.
Because you're calling out a couple of movies. I want to, you know, you've written down your hottest of takes, and I want to talk about those.
Yeah. Let's.
So, you watched The Last Drive-In?
Yes.
With,
which
Joe Bob Briggs. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me about that. And for our listeners, Tim sent me a message, or I think it was in our chat that we have open all the time, just telling me about this show on Shudder called The Last Drive-In. And I didn't really know what you were talking about, but I was like, well, Tim's usually good for a recommendation, so I'll check this thing out. And I did. So, yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, for a lot of people aren't going to be familiar, but Joe Bob Briggs, way back when, I'm trying to think of what was the network he was on? Was it USA or TNN or something like that?
I thought he said because he mentioned it at one point. He was talking about it. I thought he said maybe it was TNT. It might have been
TNT.
USA.
That's what it is. Monster Vision. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So TNT Monster Vision. And this was back in like the 90s. That's where I was introduced to, and it was always like at 9:00 he'd come on, you know, and I used to watch that. And basically, Joe Bob Briggs, he's a movie reviewer, a film critic, film historian, and his whole thing is he's from Texas. Right. Talks with a southern drawl, not that's ironically, smart. Like that's literally just how he talks, and he always, you know, wears like a cowboy getup kind of thing,
bolo tie.
Yep.
Yeah. Western cut shirt.
Incredibly insightful guy. Knows more about cinema than anybody you'd care to name, and specifically knows more about horror, like cheeseball horror and science fiction cinema than most anybody should.
Yeah, he's great. He's really knowledgeable, and that's kind of what makes The Last Drive-In.
And he was kind of our Wikipedia on this shit before we had that.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, the basic premise of the show is that he brings in the show. It's him in a chair, talking about. He's like, "Yeah, hey, welcome. We're gonna watch this movie here, and now you might not know about this movie, but blah 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 blah," and tell you a bunch of facts about it. Some stuff it's like he knows personally because he knows the filmmakers or he was on the set or something like that.
Right.
And then he's like, "All right, roll a film." And he makes jokes and tells funny stories and stuff and things.
Yeah.
And then you'll get, and it's never a set amount of time, but you'll get 20 minutes of movie, and then it'll cut back to him, and he'll be like, "Hey, what'd you think of that scene? Funny thing about that, and it's just little factoids, and it breaks up the movie, and it's like you're watching the movie with somebody, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So Shudder brought that back. They call it The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, and it literally was supposed to be his last time doing this. He was like, "I'm getting old," because he is. It's sad to say.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And he's like, "Yeah, this is my last time hosting movies like this." He's done it for TCM and a bunch of other places like that. And he was like, "Here's my picks for movies." He's like, "Not all of them are movies I wanted." He's like, "Some of them are just movies Shudder could afford."
Right.
But he made the whole thing entertaining.
He's very honest about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that just kind of to latch onto that, turns out this wasn't the last time. He's doing more for Shudder. He's got one. He's doing a marathon on Thanksgiving, and he's doing a marathon on Christmas.
Ooh!
And then he's talking about coming back and maybe doing a series for Shudder.
That's awesome. That's great news.
That might get my annual subscription back. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I kind of recommend The Last Drive-In because one, Joe Bob Briggs is a riot. I think he's amazing. I think he's we need more of him, and it's sad to say that we just don't have more of him. It's like I just want a Joe Bob Briggs assembly line. Right. But the thing is, he was hosting some what I would consider to be absolute genre classics.
Yeah,
and it's fun to get his insight, and it's fun to experience the movie with him providing commentary on the breaks.
Hey, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, if you're not familiar with Joe Bob Briggs, because I was not before The Last Drive-In, right? I'd never heard of this guy. What he is like, I feel like every region of the States has somebody that did what he did. And he actually talks about this at one point. He talks about one other. Yeah. So like, if you know who Elvira is, right? Like you might have like a local channel that would have like Elvira hosting like crusty old horror movies or something at like 11 o'clock at
Svengoolie is the most recent contemporary example.
Yeah. We had Ned the Dead where I was growing up. Like 11 o'clock at night or whatever, he'd have like The Creature from the Black Lagoon or something on, or maybe not even something that, that relevant. It might be something really terrible. Like it came from the, fucking whatever. I think I'm just making up a film name now, but like it came from the Black Planet, right? Like something you'd never heard of. It was in black and white, right? Possibly, not all of them, but like that kind of thing. It's just hosting old horror movies, like a late Saturday night. And they were there all the time, right? These guys, Svengoolie, like you mentioned, I think my friends in Chicago saw him. Ned the Dead, I don't know that he was outside of Wisconsin, maybe upper Michigan. But yeah, like Elvira is an easy one because I think most people know who she is, and she did this same kind of thing at one point. But like, yeah, Joe Bob Briggs is that, but like better than all of them, or better than I remember all of them being,
Yeah, because he's an actual film critic. He's not just some guy doing sketches. He's just sitting there telling you stories.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like Ned the Dead, where I was, he always had like guest characters on. They would do these like lame bits. And he was always in like zombie makeup and stuff like that. And, God bless him, because I remember him and he's doing it for like a really long time. He might even still be on the air. I'm not sure. But Joe Bob Briggs is like so just, I don't know. There's something about him that I like a lot. And he just knows his shit. He's really full of like fun facts and cool stories and stuff. And the moment he won me over, honestly, it was episode 2 that he's hosting Sleepaway Camp. because generally I see a guy with a Southern drawl and like cowboy gear and stuff like that, right? And like it's hard not to like kind of think you might have him figured out in a lot of ways, in some ways, right? And when he's talking about Sleepaway Camp, he starts talking about North Carolina and politics around like transgendered people in the bathrooms and stuff like that. Yeah, and I had this moment where I was like, shit, here's where I decide that this guy's a tool. But he went in completely the opposite direction from what I expected, and I was like, okay, this guy's amazing. Yeah, he is great. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good, man. Yeah, I just introducing the folks to who Joe Bob Briggs is.
Yeah. I just wanted to do the comparison to like those other people that you might have seen on like your local networks and stuff at night. You know.
And by the way, Ned the Dead, Wisconsin, still going.
Oh,
just
really?
Okay. Yeah, just looked him up. So got a Facebook page and everything.
No shit. All right, good for him, man.
So anyway, when I talk about The Last Drive-In, so Tourist Trap was one of the movies that he hosted.
That was the first episode.
Yeah. So this is it's a classic film. It's considered a classic film of the genre.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of good trivia about it. Obviously, you watched it. You said it was interesting.
Yeah, it was. I also said it felt like a Tobe Hooper movie.
A little bit, yeah. It kind of had that weird. Never got as dark as a Tobe Hooper film.
No. I mean, it touched the surface, I think, here and there, but it was such a weird movie, though. And Joe Bob Briggs did a great job of pointing this out, because I was thinking the same thing when he said it. You're never really sure what the rules are when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, you watch, like, Texas Chainsaw, you understand that Leatherface is, like, a maniac and everything, but he's not a specter. He can't, like, phase through walls or something like that, right? Like, he's just a dude that you can run from and like, potentially get the drop on him at times or get the upper hand or whatever. Right. But Tourist Trap is so weird because, okay, the main villain clearly has some kind of like telekinetic powers, but then like other unspecified powers. And you just don't know, like, what am I looking at? Is it like, is this mechanical? Is it a zombie? Is it just like,
well, we should give a quick recap for everybody listening.
Okay.
My wife, I'm just picturing my wife right now. She's like, what? So Tourist Trap is this movie from, I believe, 1980. It was actually kind of banking on the Friday the 13th craze. I think maybe before, right after. I don't know. Anyway, around that time. And it's not really a horror movie. There's not a ton of like super scary stuff in it. It's more of like a slasher film, sort of. And
definitely horror.
It is, but it's not really that scary. It's kind of hokey in a lot of parts, especially that soundtrack.
Oh, God, yes.
So anyway, there's this old yokel, and these kids, their car breaks down. Who knew? And they find their way to this guy's gas station. He's got a bunch of mannequins hanging around. One of them, he's like, yeah, that's a mannequin of my wife. My brother made her because he was an amazing mannequin maker. And, now he works up in the big city. And so this whole movie, like these mannequins come alive, like right in the first like 15 minutes. You got this one scene where the mannequins come alive and they kill this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really sure what to make of it. It's like, oh, are the mannequins alive? Is there somebody controlling them? And and to your point, it's like, yeah, is it telekinesis? Is it, is this person? Because there's lots of scenes where you've got what you think are zombies intermixed with mannequins, and then it's like, did the mannequins used to be humans? Like, what's happening here?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of it's an interesting flick. I guess that's the best way to put it. It was interesting.
Yeah. There's a scene that stuck with me, and I don't know why. It is corny. It's corny as hell, but it also like kind of sends a chill down my spine for some reason. So the group of young people who go there and find this place, like you mentioned, it gets down to final girl time, right? Where it's just one girl. She's getting chased through the woods by the main villain, and I want to say he throws a mannequin head at her. But when it misses her and it kind of lands on the ground next to her, and then it speaks while it's sitting there, and like the mouth moves, and it looks like one of her friends that came there with her, right? It's wearing like the hat that he had on and stuff, but it's still like a mannequin head, but it knows her name. Her name's Molly, and it calls out Molly. And I was just like, oh shit. So like, is that, and this again, what we were talking about, like, is that actually him? like, is his head there, or is it the main villain, like controlling it and like fucking with her, but is the sound coming out of its, like, what are the rules here? You're just never clear, and that is kind of what lends, I think, toward making it like a little creepy and weird. But yeah, it is pretty hokey in a lot of ways, and like you mentioned, that music is so goofy, like,
Yeah.
it's like, what?
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a perfectly good film. It's fine. It's fine.
I felt like by itself maybe not worth watching, but with Joe Bob Briggs occasionally coming in and talking about it, infinitely more interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it adds a lot of layers to it, and that's what I love about it. Is he adds layers to a lot of these movies.
Yeah. There's context that gets applied there, and it makes everything feel, way more relevant.
Yeah. So I mean, on that note, I want to keep going. So Sleepaway Camp, another movie that he hosted on this that you watch, and you've never seen this before.
Right? No, I hadn't. I'd heard about the movie, and it's funny because there's one of the, I think the final shot of the movie.
It's one of the most famous endings of horror movies of all time. Is the last shot of that movie.
It is, and I'd seen it for years on, like, a random T-shirt here or there, or like somebody's forum avatar, right? Like, you just see it around. I never knew what it was from. I was like, I don't know what's going on there, but that looks creepy, right? And I saw this, and I really enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed it, I think, even just watching it, maybe not in within the context of The Last Drive-In, but Last Drive-In definitely made it better, just like every other movie on the list.
Yeah.
But I liked it. It was kind of campy, corny, no pun intended, with the campy comment there, but like corny slasher flick kind of formula. But then it just like gets really, like, in the last minute in particular, it's super dark and weird, and like and I don't just mean because of like the reveal that happens or whatever. I just mean, like, I feel like the way it's shot and like the face in particular,
that last scene is haunting. Is the best way to put it. It's haunting.
It is.
So to paint the scene for anybody that hasn't seen it, and still, you go watch it. I'm going to spoil it. I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to spoil it. Mm-hmm. So the entire movie, there's this person killing people in this at this camp. All these kids are. There's this very shy girl. I can't remember her name. Anyway, there's this very shy girl, and she's getting like bullied and picked on, everything else, and the people start mysteriously dying. And anyway, fast forward to the end of the movie, you find out, oh my gosh, it's her. But not only is it her is actually him. And I'm not talking about in some, like, I'm not being like some like transphobic like douchebag here. I'm saying, like, in the context of the story, in the beginning of the movie, you're shown this scene where there's these two kids swimming. The dad gets killed. One of the kids gets killed. You don't know which kid gets killed.
Right.
And that's very important. Cut to, there's this girl, you assume she's the survivor of the two kids. What you find out is that the daughter was the one that got killed in the boat accident at the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. The mom went kind of nuts and forced her son to become a girl. And I don't mean female. This isn't like a transphobic bullshit thing. Forced her to become a girl. Because she wanted the daughter. She didn't really care about the son. She wanted her daughter.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't it? It was the aunt.
Aunt. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, because the aunt, he went to go live with the aunt after the accident that took his sibling and his father. And the aunt already had a son, didn't she?
Yeah, because that's the cousin that's with her throughout the movie. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, you get to the end of the movie, and what's so haunting is that you see this naked body of, a young, fit male, like full frontal nudity. There's a wiener there. Yeah. And but because in keeping in mind, this is 1981, you have the head of this 16-year-old girl, the actor who played the girl throughout the movie, on superimposed on the body of this man, like with a silent scream happening, and the camera hangs on it. and
Yeah.
it just and it's just again it's haunting. And that was the big twist ending. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like this is actually the little boy from the beginning of the movie. Here's the backstory of how he was forced to be transgender,
Right.
not anything that they wanted to do. And there's the big reveal at the end of the movie. But yeah, that last shot, you'll see that referenced around. Very, very haunting. Very, very haunting. And largely because of the way they had to do it, which was they had this body and then they superimposed the head on there. And it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look super fake. You're not going to look at it and go like, it's fake. You're going to look at it and it's just perfect enough, but still a little off kilter where it sticks with you.
Yeah, and it's kind of unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other part of it too, since we're spoiling everything, I feel like this is important context for that particular scene. She had been kind of like establishing a romantic relationship with one of the other kids at the camp.
Yeah, and that's what fucks you up because, like, she was forced, to live as a girl, right. And you kind of like, and when you watch the movie, like repeated viewing, it's like, because I've seen it probably 2 or 3 times over the years. As you're watching it, you're just like, okay, like she's having this like she's building this relationship. She's, typical teen, like young teenager stuff, like, oh, I'm stealing kisses behind the shed,
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is fucked up because is this happening because someone forced her to live as a girl? Or it's
or
kind of,
is he genuinely attracted to the same sex, or
yeah,
like there's a lot to kind of chew on there if you want to.
And it's interesting. I think watching it in 2018, I think there's subtext in that the filmmakers, we don't know, but did the filmmakers were they cognizant of those things when they made the film?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't complete my thought there. Sorry. The reason I brought that up, the romance, as the camera, you have like these two people who are trying to like look around and account for, hey, another body was just found, right? Like, let's just see if we can locate everybody. And so they go looking, I think, for the girl, the star of the movie.
Yep.
And they find her sitting on a bench with her back turned to them, right? The bench is facing the other way. And the camera kind of, I think, looks over her shoulder and you see, okay, the boyfriend, the love interest, has his head on her lap and she's kind of stroking his hair. And then it's revealed that it's a severed head and she's been like just stroking the hair of a severed head, which then I think rolls onto the ground and she stands up because she hears those other two people coming. And it's just as you described before, buck naked and making that face, that like silent scream with like the mouth wide open and the eyes like super big, and just like there's something very like animal about it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it just kind of sticks with you. And it's like the movie was almost like, I mean, slasher flick and people kind of dying and stuff aside, like it was almost kind of like cute at times.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's a little cheesy. It's very cheesy.
Yeah.
In a lot of parts.
Yeah. And I want to, I just realized I saw my notes here too. The cheesiness is right away in the beginning. It's at its peak. The aunt character in particular, Aunt Martha, I guess is her name. She delivers her lines like she's on on stage at like a local playhouse or something. She's like, I am an actor, very like, oh, hello, children, like that kind of delivery. It's just so over the top. And she's one of the first people that you meet. Oh God, that picture is just creepy.
I just posted a picture of it's the Scooby Gang from Scooby-Doo, and it's a drawing of the ending of the movie that we're talking about, Sleepaway Camp. That scene. Sorry, Andrew.
They're stumbling on her. Yeah, that's chilling. But yeah, once you get past Aunt Martha in the beginning, it gets better. It's very fun. So I had a good time with it. But yeah, we got other movies from the last drive-in to talk about. So we'll keep marching forward here.
Yeah, the one. So the two left on your list I really want to touch on here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
Basket Case.
also watched one more that wasn't on the. Oh, it is on the list. It's just farther down. It's at the bottom.
Sure. Yep. Totally. We'll talk about Hellraiser, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. You said Basket Case is one of the worst movies you've ever seen.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's not great. I'll give you that. But it is immensely watchable.
Yeah, just not for great reasons. And honestly, without Joe Bob Briggs occasionally coming in and talking about it, it would have lost me. I don't think.
Come on. What about the screaming? The screaming of the twin.
I know.
Oh, it's so good.
I know. And the what full motion or the stop motion?
No, the stop motion. Yeah, the stop motion is so good, and it's so jarring when you see it because it really just looks out of place. Especially when he trashes the whole hotel room, and it's like the whole thing is done in stop motion, and then it cuts to like something actually hitting the wall at full speed, and it looks so weird.
It does, yeah. Or they'll have just like a close up of the puppet, not in stop motion, and then they cut to this 8 frames a second stop motion thing after that, and it's just so weird, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it, but again, I'm watching it from the standpoint of I've seen this so many times, over the years. I think it's fun. It's fine.
It's one that I remember seeing, on the store at the video or on the shelf at the video store.
Definitely had one of those covers like we talked about in the last episode.
Yeah, but I'd never seen it before the last drive-in. So now that I've seen it, it's really weird. There's a particular scene that stands out for me just to illustrate the point of why it's bad. I think anyway. There's a detective or a cop of some sort. He's talking to the main character, the good twin, right?
Yeah.
And
you're talking about the black guy in the when he's in the room.
I think so, or maybe they're in the hallway, outside the room. Could be,
yeah. But you're talking about the black cop when he's talking to him. He only talks to him once in the movie.
Okay, yeah. They're both facing the camera, which I found very odd. The main character's not looking at the cop at all while he's asking him questions. He's like, "What about this?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What about this?" And he's like, "Maybe." Yeah, the delivery is just
always keep that much money laying around.
Yeah.
A lot of cash on the floor.
Yeah. It's just the delivery is so just strange. It's again, I'm going to repeat a line I said in the last episode. Is that, but not about this movie. Is that the only take that they did? Did they just do that in one take and say, fuck it, put it in the can, it's done,
We got it. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the climax of Basket Case.
Oh, where they're hanging from the sign?
Oh, not shortly before that.
Okay.
When the good.
Oh God, yeah, the actual horrific, actual the for anybody who obviously there's the 3 people listening. One of them is my wife, not familiar with Basket Case. The movie revolves around this guy. He's I think he's 20, 21. Good looking 70s kid, and he carries around a basket, and in the basket is his conjoined twin that was forcibly removed from him when he was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't die, left to die, but didn't die. And the conjoined twin is this horrible, deformed creature. And anyway, when they took him off, he didn't die. They ended up both being raised by their aunt, who later passed away. And the kid and his conjoined twin are in the big city, New York City, to get revenge on the doctors that illegally operated on them to separate them.
Right. Yeah, and the good twin gets a love interest, and the bad twin gets really jealous about it.
And we should say they're psychically linked. That's hinted to in the film.
Yeah, they're because you see the good twin just talking out loud, and you never hear the other. The bad twin never makes any. He never utilizes speech. It's all just screaming and
literal screaming.
Yeah, literal screaming. But you'd see the good twin in these scenes just be like, yeah, that's what I said. Or, like, I don't understand why you feel that way right now. Or so, you know what I mean? Like, but anyway, the girlfriend for the good twin, ends up on, ends up getting
Oh,
raped, murdered by the
yeah,
bad twin.
it's actually really awful.
Yeah. And they have a scene where, and Joe Bob Briggs points this out, where like apparently the crew walked out during the filming because they
Yeah.
were all
Yeah, he says that.
disgusted.
He's like, oh, you think you know what's happening at the end? I assure you, you don't.
Yeah. And I feel kind of bad if there's anybody listening that we've spoiled all this for, because like half the fun is kind of Joe Bob telling you like you don't know what's coming, and then you see it and you're like, holy shit, he was right.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just overall just a bad movie, I thought.
It has its place in the history books.
Sure.
Reanimator, one of my absolute favorite movies.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before either.
Yeah, that's a love it or hate it. I mean, people tend to run hot or cold with it. They're either like this was shit, or holy crap, this was a really well done movie.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously fall on the really well done movie side of things. I think it's one of the most immensely watchable films ever made in all of its 85 minutes of glory.
Yeah, it's very short.
Yeah, that movie, there's no fat on that film. It's just constant. You're never bored. It's good stuff, but man, is it fucking gross. It's so fucking gross.
It's pretty gross.
I feel let's point out, kids, this is the 80s. Boobs and all that stuff. Nudity sold was the way of the day.
Yeah.
There's a scene towards the end of that movie where one of the scientists who's had his head chopped off by our main protagonist comes back to life because of the reanimation fluid, and he has had this gross crush on the lead actress in the movie,
mm-hmm.
and he sexually assaults her with his head, and his body is holding the head, and it's very like it's tough. But there it is. It's other than that one spot where I cringe and I'm like, ugh. Great film.
Yeah, it's a different kind of take on the zombie trope, I guess. I don't know. I enjoyed it. And I'd heard references over the years to that movie, and it was always like one of those ones that you hear about and for whatever reason never saw. And in the context of The Last Drive-In, I enjoyed it. I think I would have still enjoyed it even without that.
I don't. Well, for me, I don't think Joe Bob brought much to the table for me for that movie, because I'd seen it so many times. Like I have like the ridiculous Blu-ray collection of that film.
Sure.
So that was good stuff. I'm glad you watched these 3 films, though. These are 3 or 4 movies. These are 4 movies that I think are good representation of the gamut of horror films from the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, Hellraiser also. That was the 5th one I watched from Last Drive-In.
Last Drive-In. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, Hellraiser, and I don't remember. I think I said this in the last episode. Maybe I didn't. But Hellraiser is, I think, it's not scary. It has some disturbing imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it's much more of a science fiction movie than it is a horror movie in a lot of ways.
Kind of, yeah. I could see that.
Because, it's you've got this box, it opens, it summons the Cenobites. Who are the Cenobites? Well, they're not necessarily from hell as we know it. They're from a dimension. They all used to be humans. They're representations of people who have like the simple pleasures of the flesh as far as we understand them in our human lives. They've transcended that through supernatural means, and it's kind of fucking crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting kind of, and it's gross. I mean, there's gross parts. Obviously, it is a horror film.
Mhm.
But it's not scary. It's more just gross.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it has a cool story. Like I like that a lot about it. I haven't seen any of the sequels or whatever, but it's
Don't, because Hellraiser 2 is absolute shit. It's fucking
okay.
garbage. It is absolute trash.
Okay.
And then everything after that is just bleh.
Sure. Okay. Cashing in on
they turn it into Friday the 13th.
okay.
They turn Pinhead into like, oh, I'm gonna get you kind of thing, and it's like, no,
Okay.
that's not at all what Pinhead was in the first movie.
No, it's pretty cool. And if there's anyone listening who hasn't seen it, yeah, there's this guy who goes to like the random vendor. The guy's, Chinese guy has got like some crazy marketplace store with like odds and ends and like, oh, the mysteries of the Orient are within this store, or like, things from places unseen. And guy buys a box. It's just like a little puzzle box and ends up opening, this doorway to the other dimension, like you explained. And like that's interesting to me, and to find out that like, oh, okay, we've jumped forward in time. That guy has like seen the other side of the doorway and he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And he's trying to claw his way out. And the way out is to convince this woman, his former lover, to basically do murders for him, because with each murder he can kind of like steal some life, so to speak, and get a little bit closer to getting back into the real, our dimension or whatever permanently, maybe. But he's got to worry about maybe getting found out by these creatures from the other dimension. And it's cool. It's deeper than I expected. I went in thinking it was just going to be another slasher movie,
Yeah.
And there was more than I expected. And it was not all super interesting the whole way through, right? Like there were some times where I was just like, this is dragging a little bit.
A
but
bit.
yeah.
As the movie gets rolling, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still glad I watched it though, and again, as always, having the commentary with Joe Bob on occasion, it helps. It breaks things up a little bit, comes in, drops a few fun facts, or says something fun, and okay, back to it.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you watched it. It's a very good movie. I would say it's easily one of the best movies, horror movies of the 80s.
Yeah.
Largely because it's actually just a really good film. I think if it was, it gets crammed into the horror genre, which a lot of people will just outright dismiss it because of that fact. But as a film, it's just really good, and it's a very interesting premise. And there's a ton of lore that's kind of built up around it that is thrust upon you, and you just kind of have to take it. And I think that's one of the things that's most interesting about it is that there's so many, like, it's so deep on so many levels in that regard, right? Of like the Cenobites and who the hell are they, and why are they there? And there's some great one-liners in there too, where he's like, "Don't cry, it's a waste of good suffering."
Yeah,
things like that. And we have so many things, so many sights to show you.
Yeah, we have such sights to show you.
Yeah. And what I love about Pinhead, and he's not referred to as Pinhead in the movie at all. That came later in the sequels. One of the things I love about him is that he's not just some bloodthirsty slasher guy. It's like he is, they say it themselves, like, we're explorers of the further, realms, that kind of thing. It's like angels to some, demons to others. And I forget the girl's name, the character's name in the movie, but when she accidentally summons the Cenobites, she tries to bargain with him, and if it was a slasher movie, he would just show up. They would just show up and kill her,
Right.
But in this case, she's like, "Wait a minute, I've got something to offer you. I don't want to go with you. I accidentally opened this box, but I know who you're looking for. Somebody got away from you, And then he's like, and then they're just like, "Okay, we're listening."
Right.
And it's like, yeah, it was like, oh, these are characters, right? They're not just like horror, creepy, scary things. Like, these are actual characters.
Right.
And I thought that's one of the things I found most fascinating about it. And that's
Yeah,
why I say don't watch the sequels, because they're terrible.
I'll take your word for that. But yeah, overall, a good experience watching that. So yeah, I'd recommend checking it out if you haven't. It's interesting.
But lots of
especially-
gross. I gotta say, not a lot of scary stuff. I think the reanimation of the one guy when he's he's escaping hell or whatever the dimension is.
Yeah.
That's gross. And there's some gross parts in there, especially at the end of the movie where they're tearing him apart when they catch him, and he's like, Jesus wept, and
Yeah.
That's gross, but it's not scary per se.
No, yeah, and that's part of what makes that movie so watchable too, is that you're not just like nervous and biting your nails the whole way through. Like, bad stuff is coming and everything, but it does do a good job of kind of sucking you in and making you want to what's going to come next. But at the same time, like I said, I think the dragging is also just partly due to like, okay, I see where this is going and I'm interested, so let's get there.
Right. One thing I want to point out that's common across all of these films that we touched on, I think, in the last episode, is that some of these movies are scary. They're genuinely scary. There's scary parts in them.
Mm-hmm.
None of them, maybe with the exception of Basket Case, really rely on jump scares.
Right.
A lot of modern horror films, there are, obvious exceptions, rely so heavily on jump scares. There's no terror to anything. It's just, I'm going to get you.
Right.
None of these movies really have that. And I think that's just kind of I think that speaks to kind of just the lost art of horror filmmaking.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You watch trailers for modern horror movies, and how many of them, like, and this is part of why Danielle, my wife, can't watch these like movie trailers and stuff when they come on. She'll like cover her eyes, because you just know, like The Nun, for example, right? There's that.
Oh yeah, that's atrocious. That movie is all jump scares.
Yeah, and I'm susceptible to that stuff. Like it can get me even when it's coming. Like it can.
Yeah, of course, it's a perfectly normal reaction to something,
right,
like pouncing and like really giving you that
right.
But I mean, it's like
it's not as artful.
It's a momentary like jump, but it's not really scary. It's not really horror, right? There's no creeping dread being developed,
right?
So anyway, Texas Chainsaw 2, huh?
Yeah, I watched that because it was on Hulu this month.
Sure.
Which so is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, if you have not seen that.
Not really a horror film, but
it
right.
scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, though. It really
fair enough.
Yeah,
I think all of these are prime examples of what we were talking about previously, where all of these movies had representation on the horror movie shelf in the VHS stores, in the rental stores. Mm-hmm. We talked about the cover of Basket Case. The cover of Basket Case is far scarier than the movie.
Right.
The cover of Sleepaway Camp, less so. I don't know, a Reanimator. It has a memorable cover, but it's not wasn't really scary. Texas Chainsaw 2, we talked about that in the previous episode, where it was a send up. The cover of the VHS was a send up of the Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry, your thoughts. It was on Hulu. You watched it. Now, is this your first time seeing it?
Texas Chainsaw 2, no. Years so long ago that I barely remembered anything about it.
Sure.
Right. So this may have well been my first viewing, technically. Well, I guess not technically, but but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
What I remembered was Bill Moseley, who plays Chop Top in this movie.
Yep.
He is the Otis character in House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects.
Yes.
And the upcoming sequel to The Devil's Rejects. He is Otis again. I had not realized when I saw House of a Thousand Corpses just how much Otis is just Chop Top.
Oh, absolutely.
He's just that guy.
It totally is. And that's part of why I love The Devil's Rejects so much, because it literally plays like a sequel to Texas Chainsaw 2.
Yeah, Otis is a lot darker in The Devil's Rejects than he was in
Yeah, he was more of
House.
kind of a mischievous, like, when I say Joker, I mean like Batman Joker kind of character in Texas in Chainsaw 2. He was just a miserable murderous fuck in Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, definitely. He's very, gruff, and his look even lends to that in that movie in Devil's Rejects, with the big beard and the long hair and stuff. Very unkempt, and very Chop Top in Texas Chainsaw 2 is just gross.
Yeah,
everything about him is his teeth, his disgusting like chrome dome like head wound thing that he's always scratching at with a coat hanger.
Yep.
Disgusting.
And that line, if anybody out there is a Primus fan, the song Jerry was a race car driver, will recognize quotes from that movie where he's like, dog will hunt, that's from that movie.
Yeah, it sure is. That movie is it's not the first movie, right? Like, it's not got that darker tone.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no like, oh my god, what have I just witnessed going on? It's more like, what the fuck is going on here?
It's like a haunted house, honestly. It's like when you buy a ticket to walk through with like actors and stuff. That's kind of what that movie felt like. It's because you got Chop Top, who is like the guy that bugs you after you've bought your ticket and you're waiting to get into the house or whatever, right? Or maybe he's like the guy in the first room that you enter. And then you've got scenes where Leatherface, well, I guess I don't remember if it's the first time you see him in the movie or not, but there's a scene where like Chop Top's backing up the radio DJ, and all of a sudden Leatherface just comes like out of the darkness, like chainsaw already on. Of course, you didn't hear it or anything, right? It's just like
Is it the rips through the wall, right? Yeah.
Does he rip through the wall? It might be that. Yeah, but it's very like oogie boogie boogie, right? Like just out of nowhere. And like they even, what I didn't remember either was how they just completely reenact the final third of the movie or whatever of the first movie in this movie. Like all of this stuff with Grandpa, it's like,
oh yeah,
all of this was done already. You guys have been here, What I did remember was just like the what is his name? Dennis Hopper. The stuff with Dennis Hopper.
It's so cheesy at the end where he straps on the multiple chainsaws and
yeah. Yeah, that was all I could really remember from this, to be honest. And it was better than I remembered it. I don't know. It's so weird because you see movies and you feel one way about them, and then like years can pass and you can watch them again and not remember anything. And I don't remember why I didn't like remember more of this. It was just almost completely lost to me in my memory. But I did enjoy it. It's goofy. It's not as scary. I didn't really care for some of the changes, but I didn't hate it. It's just kind of like a dumb, fun movie.
Yeah, and that's what's so weird about it is that, like, at the time it wasn't. I don't think it was, and I was a kid when it came out, but at the time it wasn't clear that this was a tongue-in-cheek kind of genre send-up in a lot of ways. Like it's you got to remember, by this time Tobe Hooper was coming off of Poltergeist. Tobe Hooper was coming off of all of his like Invaders from Mars, that kind of stuff, and then he did Texas 2. And he meant for it to be kind of like funny, like it's meant to be kind of funny, and there's comedic aspects to it that definitely were not in the first movie. And I think only with like the benefit of hindsight have people kind of come around to the idea of like picking up what he was putting down there,
Yeah, totally. I feel like that movie, I feel like I have heard a little bit about, people getting more positive over that one over time.
Yeah. Well, it's like what happened with Halloween 3.
Yeah, totally.
Like things have people have gotten incredibly receptive to that film and what it was trying to do. At the time, it was just people hated it, couldn't stand it. It was awful.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Lately, I really enjoy Jim Sterling's stuff on YouTube, and don't know if you're much of a fan or if
I
our
don't really
listeners
follow him. I know who he is. I don't really follow him these days, but
okay. He was wearing the pumpkin mask from Season of the Witch on
okay.
a recent video, right? And he talked about how he was a fan of that movie, and I just like it's a good example of just what I've kind of seen out there, right? I know it's a bit anecdotal or whatever, but just like on various forums and stuff, like I've seen people kind of warmly regard Season of the Witch, and I think I feel like I'm starting to see a little bit of that with Texas Chainsaw 2, which was what kind of prompted me to watch it when I saw it was on Hulu. I was like, oh, and we also just talked about the original on a podcast. Maybe I'll refresh myself on this, and it's like seeing it again for the first time. But
well, and what's fun about it too is that we kind of gave a lot of shit to Rob Zombie's Halloween, which, by the way, I watched the first half hour. That movie is utter shit. That movie is fucking absolute garbage.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I steered you wrong.
I'm not saying you have bad taste in movies. I'm just saying that is not the movie for me.
Sure.
But if you look at Texas Chainsaw 2, anybody who's like, oh, Rob Zombie was inspired by his movies were inspired by the classics, that he referenced on all of his albums. It's like, no, his movies were inspired. Like, you can trace back everything to Texas Chainsaw 2. That's what he was inspired by. And as you said, he went so far as to fucking get Bill Moseley in all of his movies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's that same mischievous kind of like, I'm a trickster, but I'm going to cut your head off,
Yeah, Bill Moseley's even that guy in 31. Rob Zombie.
Yeah, he totally is.
He's one of the chainsaw clown guys, but he's that same, dog will hunt guy again.
Right. It's a fine movie. Totally.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, it's on Hulu, so if you have that, go watch it.
I appreciate your one-word review of The House of the Devil.
Yeah, I just wrote, whoa. You mentioned that to me, and you mentioned it on the last episode of our show where you had talked about movies that kind of do the 70s throwback thing.
Yeah.
You could watch House of the Devil not knowing that it was made in, 2015 or 2000?
Yeah, it's new.
Yeah. You could watch that not knowing what year it was, and I bet people would, I would have bet money that was made in the 70s. Yeah. I would have been so sure that it was made in the 70s because they just nail the aesthetic so well. It's like I kind of couldn't get over it as I was watching it. And not only that, but it's well written. It's got a real good build to it. And then when things kind of start happening, the first thing that happens was so jarring because I didn't see it coming. And
the girl in the car? Girl in the car?
Yeah. I was trying not to spoil it.
Girl in the car.
Yeah. When that happens, I was just like, oh, holy shit,
This movie's not fucking around.
Right. And then from there, it just kind of gets a little more wild and a little more wild. And it's not the most shocking movie I've ever seen or anything, but it just kind of wasn't what I was expecting. I thought I had the movie a little figured out, and for anyone listening who's not familiar, it's a girl who's going to college. She finds a flyer that says, babysitter needed, and it has a phone number. So she calls it, and they're like, hey, we're in great need of one. Can you come tonight? And it just so happens that it's the same night as a lunar eclipse. And so, the guy on the other end of the phone seems just desperate to get her there to be a babysitter. And you just think, okay, clearly the house is haunted, right? There's something going on here that, there's something. I feel like I know where this is going. And then it still managed to surprise me. And it was, I thought it was really good. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought it up and that I want to say that one was also on Shudder.
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's been on Shudder since they started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That movie got a VHS release.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Very hard to find these days, but that movie got a VHS release.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Yeah. Something else, really quick. I want to bang out two more of these, and then we'll talk about one that I think we're going to dwell on for a bit.
Sure.
On we'll fall back to Hulu for a second. Hulu has The House is October built,
which I've not seen. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so here's the deal. It's two movies. The second one you can just fully avoid. Please do. The first one, though, I think everybody who has been interested in haunted houses has heard the urban legend that somewhere there is this house where
it's a found footage movie. All right.
Yeah, it is. But hear me out. It has a concept that I thought was really interesting. I like haunted houses, the kind where you buy a ticket and you go walk through, right? And got people jump out at you, and they spend a lot of time dressing up the rooms to look a certain way and have different themes and stuff, right? Throughout my years of going to those things, everywhere you go, Midwest, when I was in the South, when I'm out here in the Pacific Northwest, everybody has heard of the house that is somewhere nearby, but nobody quite seems to know where you go, and it's so much money to get in, but every floor you make it through, or every room you make it through, whatever the tale is, you get like $1 of your entry fee back, because the house is just so scary. They're so certain you won't make it. And so, most people are just going to bitch out after the first couple of rooms or whatever. And that's how they make their money. And everybody's heard about this place. It doesn't exist, right? It's just an urban legend. But this movie took it so that, like, okay, what if these people who love haunted houses got together and went to go track this place down finally? And when they find it, it's more than they bargained for, of course, right?
Of course.
And it's a great concept. I don't think it's executed particularly well in the first movie, but like there's enough there that I enjoyed where I feel like it's a tentative recommendation. I think if you enjoy haunted houses, like this could be something you would enjoy, and you should check it out. But if you just are like a horror fan, I could see it going either way. Like you might like this, you might not.
Okay.
And then the second movie, like I don't know if I should spoil it. The first movie, rather. To talk about the second movie, I have to spoil the first movie.
Is it a big twist ending?
No, it's just. Should I go for it?
Yeah, who cares? I don't care.
Okay,
I don't care about spoilers at all. Not the least.
Everybody in the group of haunted house enthusiasts, they die at the end of the first movie. They're fucking either buried alive or in the trunk of a car off to some terrible demise somewhere, right? Like basically.
So it's like every found footage movie ever.
Yeah. They're it's depressing, right? You're just like, oh man, that's it. All right. And I had mixed feelings about the first time I saw it, but I enjoyed the parts where they were going through the houses and stuff, and they were getting harassed by the crew members of this one particular house that was like following them around. And that was the thing. It was like, okay, yeah, you go find the legendary house. It seems like every other house until you leave, and then you keep seeing the people from in the house everywhere you go. So then the second movie starts, and it just completely retcons the first movie's ending. Like everybody lived. Oh, it turns out the person who was in the trunk of a car, well, a cop pulled the car over and they were saved. The people who were buried alive, like they got unburied. And then as if that wasn't enough, the whole thing is just like another setup. It's like the Scream sequels, or like the second Blair Witch movie or something, where like it was a ruse all along and this was all according to plan, and like everybody was in on it except for one person, and of course you, the viewer. And it's just so badly done that it just like I wanted my time back, which doesn't happen often,
Man.
So yeah, there's that. Do with that what you will. The Ritual is on Netflix. That's a new film, new this year. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that, no.
Okay. Here's the gist of that one. Two guys go into a convenience store in the beginning of the movie. It gets held up. One of them does not make it out of the convenience store. The survivor and the mutual friends of the deceased go on a sort of like spirit walk to kind of remember their friend. It takes them out into these mountains. But they get to this point where they need to they need to leave the mountains because somebody's injured, right? And it's okay. How are we going to get back to civilization? Well, we'll cut through the woods, and when they cut through the woods, they discover terrible things, and it goes interesting places. I felt like the ritual was pretty good and worth your time, and I don't want to say much more about it other than that because I want you to just not know what'll happen like I did. I think
fair.
you'll enjoy it.
Not found footage though, right?
No, definitely
Okay.
not.
I fucking hate found footage movies.
I do too, aside from the VHS.
Yeah, those get an exception because they're they're short little vignette films.
Yeah. So. And we teased last episode that we'd talk about those, so I guess we may as well now, really quick. So yeah, that first movie is the best one, and it's because of the opening story and the ending story. I thought I don't hear people often talk about the ending one. But I liked it a lot. I thought it was really
I'm trying to remember what the ending one was. The first one sticks out in your mind because that one is genuinely scary.
Yeah.
What's the last one?
The last one is a group of guys go to a house where they think there's a party. And when they get to the house, they hear something going on upstairs. They go up there. There's like some kind of pagan ritual or something taking place. I want to say like a human sacrifice or something.
Okay, yeah. Keep going though.
And they fuck it up. I want to say that they try to rescue the person that's going to be killed or something like that, and they end up. I don't remember exactly how it happens, but like because they fucked up the ritual, or maybe it was still completed and they were just too late. The whole house starts transforming. And as they run downstairs to exit the house, like they're going through all the rooms, and like there's one room where the furniture's all floating around in the air and stuff, right? And it's really convincing looking. And there's like handprints appearing on the walls and stuff like that. They go into a room where like the door literally shrinks in front of them and just disappears so that it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like just really awesome haunted house stuff. And I really dug that. Like it just looked very convincing, and I really appreciated that about it. I dug that a lot.
And to put this in perspective, this is a found footage movie, and
yeah.
The camera is shaking and moving around. So a lot of these effects are very convincing when you see them, especially in the context of the fact that like these were done digitally, and they were done digitally on footage that's low grade, super shaky, and it's kind of impressive that's as good as it is.
Yeah, agreed. Some of the sequels have some good parts too. I want to say the second movie, the ending, which isn't even like one of the little mini stories in it, but like the overarching story of like these people who have broken into a house, I think, which I think the first one has like the same story. They like break into a house or something, and they find this room with all these VHS tapes that they start watching, and each one that they watch is like one of the stories, right? If you're not familiar with the series. The second one has this thing where, is it the second one? Shit. Well, one of these has one where everybody who goes in there is like getting killed off one by one, like slasher style, by some unseen force kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, everybody that goes to watch the tapes in the house.
Yeah. And the last person alive in one of them, I can't remember if it's the first or the second movie. I was thinking it was the second one. The second to last person mutates like Thing style, like full on like spider walking, limbs pointed the wrong direction, head upside down, like closing in on the last living person. And through the lens of like found footage and like you were saying, just the convincing effects, it's very chilling. It was like terrifying. So yeah, like there's some good highlights in that series. They're not all winners, but they're fun. They're interesting. I think they're kind of worth a watch when you're trying to binge horror.
They're fun, and each vignette I think maybe tops out at like 10 minutes.
Yeah, they're not super long.
Yeah, you're not gonna get if one isn't ringing your bell, just wait it out till the next one.
Yeah, I want to say they might be like 20 minutes roughly, because there's like generally isn't there like 4 of them per movie?
Yeah, something like that. But still, it's still not terribly long. It's not a 90-minute investment if you're not into it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, sorry, I got us off track. I was gonna rifle through like 2 more. The Babysitter is one on Netflix. Did you see that one?
I started watching it, couldn't get into it.
Okay, that's fair.
Just not my bag.
I liked The Babysitter. I thought it was entertaining. It was amusing. It was funny.
It was very. That's part of why it turned me. I was very Scream-like, and I'm not a Scream fan.
I'm not a Scream fan either. But the babysitter was different enough, and I thought it was just much more cleverly written, or just I guess the dialogue bits and stuff were more amusing to me than like anything from the Scream movies. It doesn't. The babysitter's aware of what it is, whereas I feel like the Scream movies were still trying and unaware of how ineffective they were for a time.
Yeah. See, to me, the babysitter, like I think of a movie like The Final Girls, right?
Yeah.
Which that I don't know. I just think a movie like that did a much better job of what they were trying to do.
Hey, so there's two of those, by the way. There's a movie called The Final Girl, and then there's The Final Girls.
The Final Girls is the funny one, sort of, kind
of. Is it the one where they realize that they're in the movie?
Yes, that's the one we watched. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I like that one. That one's great. Did we watch that together?
We certainly did.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. Were we at your house?
Well, we were at the townhouse that I lived in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we must have been there. Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
Well, it's on my Plex server if you want to revisit it. So
that one might be worth a revisit. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then The Witch, which came out like a couple of years ago, maybe.
Yeah. That was the darling. Everybody was like, "This is the horror movie to watch. This is the Exorcist of the New Age." I fell asleep. I literally fell asleep watching that movie.
It's because that movie chugs for so long. My one word review here in just our notes was boring, period.
Yeah. It's there. It has a creeping dread to it. Largely because of the cinematography and locales. But overall, I don't know, man. Like, I guess, if you find the supernatural kind of stuff to be the most terrifying thing, your mileage may vary on it.
Sure.
A lot of people were kind of talking about this movie in the same breath as The Exorcist, and I don't think that's very fair, because I think a lot of what makes The Exorcist work is that it really plays on, for better or worse, most of us, especially of our generation, where Christianity or Christian beliefs they're in the mix of our person somewhere, right? Because at some point in our life, that was a part of our life,
right?
And I think that's why, totally, and I think that's why The Exorcist works so well, because no matter who you are, if you have that Christianity upbringing in your background, you can relate and be scared of it, because it is the film version of everything that the priest told you to be afraid of as you were growing up,
right.
And I think The Witch it doesn't really have that,
No, The Witch has.
You find it spooky.
Right. Well, it's the whole thing with The Witch is it's completely dependent on the big payoff at the end and how you feel about that, right? And I don't feel like the ends justified the means for me. I like, I can appreciate the story. I can appreciate what they did at the end there. But I don't know. It just felt a little too art house for me. It was well acted, right? Like the dialogue was good. I really liked the scenes where the daughter's trying to defend herself and plead her case to her father after her younger siblings have accused her openly of being a witch. Like that, those exchanges are really great. But I don't know. I think maybe part of what made it a dud for me was all of the hype and some of the expectation. Like I was kind of expecting to be a little dazzled, and it just wasn't as surprising as I kind of thought it was going to be. It was kind of like the bare bones version of what I expected.
Yeah.
In terms of just like the overall premise. Like that's not to speak poorly again of the acting, which I thought was really good, and some of the dialogue and writing and stuff also very good. It just, I don't know. It was one of those movies where it was not more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. No, and nothing about that movie surprises you.
Right.
Because you're given, like, whatever. It's been a couple years. If you haven't seen it, fuck you. I don't care about spoilers. This girl throughout the entire movie is like, you're a witch because you've done blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the movie, she gives up and just joins the coven.
Mm-hmm.
And there's it played off like the literal devil is there. And she's like, oh, yeah, she just kind of like just joins them. And I'm like, okay, so you built up this whole story about everybody accusing this girl of being a witch. And then at the end of the movie, she's like, fuck it, I'm a witch, I guess. Right. I was like, I don't know. That felt kind of lazy.
Yeah, like her whole family's dead, and I get like, okay, she doesn't have anything to live for at this point. Like, maybe there's like a curiosity that takes over. Okay, this goat that I thought
you're gonna be pretty fucking curious if you're gonna like strip the clothes off the devil and start floating around.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I hear you. I guess I'm trying to justify some of the motives of the character there, but yeah, I shouldn't have to. I guess I don't know. It's weird to like, because the movie. Again, I feel like there's stuff to appreciate about that movie, way more so than like something like Basket Case, which I sat through and like was, I was amused at times by Basket Case. I guess to be fair, I did say it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but it just feels weird,
And movies like The Witch, they're beautiful, they're well acted, the cinematography's top notch.
Yeah,
it's got a weak story, got a pretty weak premise, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, just. The payoff, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
And that's kind of the thing with when you want to make a horror movie, especially a horror movie where you really want to ratchet up that creep factor, which The Witch does to a certain extent. Yeah, it's you've got to have that ending, right? And the ending either has to leave you exhausted, or it has to fulfill you either for the better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean like the ending of The Exorcist. I keep bringing it up in the same breath as this, but it's it's one of those movies where
they kept comparing it. Everybody compared this to that. I remember that.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of that movie, it's like the exorcism ends with the priest taking in the demon and throwing himself out of the fucking window. And it's like, knocks the wind out of you. That's and there's your payoff, right? Mm-hmm. And even something like Halloween, right? The original Halloween, we talked about that ad nauseum in the last episode. Michael gets shot, falls off the second story of the house. Dr. Loomis looks out the window and, oh my God, he's gone. And it's like, there's your payoff. And I don't really feel like this movie had that. I feel like this movie just kind of like it got to the end and it just let out this big, like it was just like this big sigh, and then there it was. Sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I for some reason I weirdly feel guilty about not liking the movie.
No, it's okay. And I was gonna say, I think a contemporary example to The Witch as far as a horror movie or suspense thriller movie with horror elements would be like The Green Room, right? Came out the same year, I believe. Yeah, it did. And so that's a brutal movie, and that one was actually shot in Portland. And a lot of it was actually shot in and around where you live currently. And and it has Patrick Stewart in it. That's always good. He plays a white supremacist neo-Nazi creepo.
No shit.
And that movie is brutal. That is the best way I can describe that movie. It is filmed brutality. And it's a perfect example of a movie that the ending is more akin to someone you're driving 1,000 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Like you're in a car, you're trapped in a car with somebody and they're driving 100 miles an hour this entire time, and you're freaked out and you're screaming at them to stop and you're begging them and they aren't listening and they just keep driving and driving and driving and driving and driving, and then they slam the brakes on and they get out and run away and you never see them again, and you're just left there in the car going like, holy fuck, I can't believe I made it through that. That's what The Green Room feels like.
Okay. Damn, I guess I've got one to add to my watch list here.
Yeah, that's a good flick.
Okay, so I got at least two more I want to cover before we close out here.
Yeah, let's do it. I got a sneaking suspicion we got a part 3 coming.
Yeah, I think so.
Look, I love fucking movies. I love cinema, and more specifically, I love horror films. It's just my thing. We could do a fucking podcast about this subject. So the fact we're trying to keep this into 3 episodes is actually I don't know. I feel like a personal achievement for me.
Right. Yeah, I've got so much to talk about with gaming horror stuff too that we haven't even gotten to, but that'll be next episode. I wanted to talk about the new Halloween movie, and I wanted to talk about Mandy. And I know you've seen one, but have you seen the new Halloween?
I've not seen the new Halloween movie, but I completely aware of everything that happens in it. So.
Oh, okay. You got sick too, so that's also maybe partly why you didn't get to see it.
Yeah, that's yeah. Then I rarely watch movies when they first come out.
Oh, sure.
It just came out the Friday before so it's Wednesday we're recording this. It came out last Friday, and I just haven't. Yeah.
Well, let me talk about that quick, since only one of us has seen it. It'll be a shorter conversation, maybe.
Sure.
I took my younger sister-in-law to it, who's 18 and in college. She's never seen a Halloween movie before. But she's, I've been kind of slowly introducing her to horror and stuff. So she's seen some horror movies. And then in a surprise twist, my wife came.
Wow, that is actually surprising.
Dude, I was floored. I went to the Retro Gaming Expo that same day, right? And my wife was going to drop off her sister at the movie theater, and I was going to meet them there. She was going to go home and watch some ladies shows, and the two of us were going to go to the movie and then go back home, right? So she starts texting me, and she's like, so yeah, do you want this you want me to sneak in some alcoholic beverages into the theater and stuff? I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I was like, well, my younger sister's not really drinking age yet, but
jeez,
I'll be the cool brother-in-law this one time. So
I believe that gets your ass killed in a slasher film.
Right. So she gets there, and I find out that she bought a ticket at the last moment, and the extra alcoholic beverages for her. And I was like, oh my God, are you going to be able to even handle this? Right. Because she saw the first Halloween, and it has stuck with her over the years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Michael Myers is just really creepy to her. But she was feeling like she was going to miss out, and so the three of us went, my wife who does not dig horror movies, my younger sister-in-law who has not seen a ton of them, but enjoys this genre. And was new to Halloween, and me, who has seen most of the Halloween films, and being the horror guy that I am. So that's our group. All three of us loved it.
That's it? That's the story?
Well, I was expecting maybe a little more surprise on you. Like, all three of you?
No, why would it's the number one movie in the country, man? It's like a huge cross appeal on that one. So that's not shocking.
Yeah. I just it surprised me.
I was actually I've heard it's not really scary in the way the first one was, because it's less stalkery and more immediately I'm going to just start indiscriminately killing people until it gets to the final act.
Mm-hmm.
The third act of the film, kind of when they turn the formula from the first film on its head. That's
well, there's okay, that's fair.
Basically it turns into Home Alone.
Nah, I don't think that's fair.
I'm just picking it. I only say that because Red Letter Media just posted the review of it, and Macaulay Culkin for some reason was there on the set.
On the set of the movie?
No. He was hanging out with the Red Letter Media guys while they were doing the review.
Oh, okay. That's weird. Well, I guess that's less weird than him being on the movie.
That's fair. But no, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. That's cool that they all enjoyed it. Did your wife find it to be frightening?
Not like, yes, she did. Like, there is some debate over what the post credits thing in the movie means. And my wife is firmly in the camp of, I don't want to know about that. Like, I want it to end the way that I thought it ended, and that's it. So yeah, other than that, like, I don't know. She seems to be doing fine with it. But like we all had a good time and enjoyed ourselves, and it was a good experience, you know. And I just thought it was a lot of fun. Like it wasn't scary, like you said. Definitely, just I was never really like scared. I was more like kind of scared for the people in the movie,
Yeah.
because I kind of like saw the way things were going. But it's like consistently amusing. Like there's some bits where it's really funny. There's a ton of like nods to the other movies,
Mhm.
and they're not like glaring or obvious for the most part. Like they're very well done and clever, I thought. And if you're a fan, like you'll appreciate them, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It was good. You know, there were a lot of, it's weird. Like there's something when you sit back and listen to yourself talk about how you enjoyed a movie where like 17 people get murdered, like you feel like, man, what the fuck's wrong with me? Right.
Right.
But it was just, it was a good time. It was just fun. The kills were at times brutal, but never they never felt mean spirited, the same way that I kind of talked about maybe like the second Halloween movie from Rob Zombie, right? Like it just felt mean.
There's no
times.
weird like murder porn shit.
Right. Like there is literally a scene where you watch a kitchen knife go through a woman's throat and it comes out the other side, and that is a pretty bad way to go. And it, you know, and it's like, oh damn, when you see it, right? But at the same time, it's not like I'm scarred from seeing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, you know,
It's not like a Saw film where they linger on it and like start going into like horribly gory details, and then he gets a second knife out, and then you know here's a corkscrew, and
that's not even the worst kill. Like there are several kills that are I think quite a bit worse than that one, but that was one that just served as a good example. But none of them are the kind of thing that like, you know, you walk out of the theater just like kind of you know, hugging yourself a little bit, like, you know,
right.
You know, but it was just fun. It was a really good time, and the music is so good.
Yeah,
and,
I heard John Carpenter just knocked it out of the park on this one.
Oh man, does he ever? And the I think it's called Triumphant. It's a take on the Halloween theme, but it's what rolls during the credits. It's really good. He's got like some guitar riffs that have been like kind of thrown into the mix among other things, but it's awesome. It's really good. I'm going to be handing out candy next week, and I like to sit in my driveway with music playing and stuff. And it's always like, well, I have to, because otherwise if the doorbell's ringing every 5 minutes.
Oh, and the dogs will just
yeah, all
I get
night
it
long. Yeah. So that's why I have to do that. But I try to play like fun, you know, like creepy Halloweeny music, or just like straight up ass metal, like in the driveway, right? Something like stuff you'd hear at a haunted house is what I'm going for. And like when I heard that at the theater, I was like, that's the version I got to play out in the driveway this year. It's so damn good.
Yeah, maybe I should take a hit from you on that and do that.
Yeah.
I got my orange porch light. I got a bulb I got to put on.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Got my gravestones in the yard.
Oh yes, yeah.
Halloween is the only holiday we decorate for, man.
Oh, is it really?
It seriously is.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit out there with stereo and some jack-o'-lanterns in the dark with I've got the house lights, like porch lights on behind me. And so last year, as people were coming up, they were not sure if I was a person or if I was a decoration, because
there
they
you
couldn't
go.
see my face because of the light.
Thing,
yeah. So but anyway, yeah, I really recommend the new Halloween. I had a great time watching it. I think you, as a fan, like, I don't know, you know, you're hard for me to peg, because I thought maybe you'd appreciate the Rob Zombie one a little bit more. So I'm a little more hesitant to say that it'll be a slam dunk for you. But,
I'm happy to watch it. Dude, I mean, I love film. I'll watch anything. I really will. And people take my criticism or my reviews of films, like if I come out and I say like, oh yeah, that movie didn't have very good cinematography, or like, the ending was kind of blah, and they're like, oh, you didn't like it. I'm like, no, I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I just like, I have friends that are like, I'm like I watch movies from a critical and technical eye, and people are like, oh, I feel really sorry for you that you can't just you can't just turn your brain off and enjoy a movie. And it's like, well, I don't know about you, but I don't really feel like feeling like a fucking moron. So I'm not too upset about not being able to turn my brain off, I guess. It's like,
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah, I'll check it out. I'll probably enjoy it.
Good. Yeah, it's actually one where I would like to. I don't think I'll see it in the theater again, but not because I didn't enjoy it, just because I don't see myself having the time to go before it's probably gone.
Sure.
But I will definitely. I think I'd like to own that one. I own the old one, so I'd definitely like to own this new one too.
Get on the 4K Blu-ray.
Yeah, I need to get the old one in the 4K. I don't have that version, so I think it's cheap. You can find it. I think I saw it recently at like Target for $15. So
Yeah, you might as well get it. At this point, you might as well get the 4K release.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so I've got hot pizza waiting for me, but I wanted to make sure that we covered Mandy, since that's one that I know you can speak about before we close out here, and get you all hanging
absolutely
in there for part 3 on the way.
Yeah. Do you want me
Mandy,
to talk about it? You got it. You go.
Okay, I was just gonna say it's coming soon to Shudder. So I know we've pimped that a lot lately, but adding more value to your $5 for the month, you can find this one on there. I had to get it through Amazon. Was I think one of the only places I could find it that was going to be convenient for me to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a trip to Las Vegas recently, so I had a 4-hour, I think, plane ride to fill, because we went up to Seattle and then to Vegas. So it was like 2 flights that were about 2 hours. So anyway, I needed something to do, and I decided Mandy was going to be for one of the flights. And that's a weird movie to watch on a plane with other people around, potentially seeing your screen.
Just gonna say that.
There is full frontal nudity. There's extreme violence. There is other weird shit.
Yep.
Man, what a hell of a movie, though.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's one of those movies where you're like, hey, somebody figured out how to use Nick Cage. Because this movie was he was the absolute most perfect casting for this film. I can't imagine anybody else in that role.
Yeah, he was perfect for it. You're right. Especially the parting shot of him, the last time you see him in the movie.
Oh, the creepy, like, staring at you, smiling in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, only he could do that. Anybody else would look weird.
It was perfect. Yeah.
Gosh,
I want to turn it over to you and let you kind of take the lead on this one, because there's, like, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, my mind is jumping from scene to scene to scene, and I kind of don't know where to start beyond what I've already kind of said about it briefly here. It's an overwhelming movie to kind of like think about in terms of how do we describe this to people who haven't seen it?
Well, so all right, so I'll kind of begin at the beginning here. So Mandy is a horror / psychedelic film that was directed by Panos Cosmatos is the director's name. And fun trivia fact, okay, his father was the director of the movie Tombstone.
I love that movie.
Yeah, random, right? And so he had one previous film to this, which was called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is also on Shudder. And that's a kind of a trippy sci-fi / horror film. It's fine. It's a perfectly good movie. Perfectly, it's an acceptable story. There's nothing really too crazy. No big twists and turns. But the movie is visually, the scene composition is absolutely jaw-dropping, second to none. Until you get to Mandy. Mandy is the same way. It's just. It's an absolutely gorgeous movie. Now, the one thing I can't stress enough, and I should have kind of given you this warning. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know. I kind of look at Mandy in a lot of ways as the same way I look at something like Blade Runner 2049. Absolutely gorgeous film. Beautiful. It definitely has a story to tell. I just wish it would fucking tell it faster, because goddamn those boring parts. And Mandy has that going for it too, not nearly to the extent of Blade Runner 2049.
That's a completely fair statement, though.
Yeah, because it takes a while to get going. It's like a diesel engine on a cold morning, you know. It's just like yeah. But then once it gets started, man, there's no fucking stopping it.
even in the warm up though, I do feel like you can just appreciate the shots, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a absolutely beautiful film. And you know, and it's weird with very little dialogue, with very little, almost with very little character development. You get invested in the relationship between Nicolas Cage's character and the titular character of Mandy. You don't get a ton of background. You get flashbacks, things like that. So that when the time comes, and spoiler alert, when the time comes for Mandy to basically be killed by these crazy evil people that show up, one, she dies in the most horrific way, being burned alive. Nicolas Cage, her husband, has to watch this happen.
Are we going full spoilers on this, by the way?
Why not? Who cares?
Okay. All right. Well, I like to call that out and make it kind of clear for the listener, just in case they,
That's why I said spoilers.
Did you? Sorry, I might have tuned that out. Sorry.
That's fair. You got pizza waiting. So anyway, yeah. By the time that the event that kicks off the then revenge flick that Mandy turns into happens, you're weirdly invested in their relationship. You actually kind of care about these characters, which is weird because you're not given much about them.
Well, I think their lifestyle is pretty relatable. Like they have a fairly humble home. Nick Cage is a guy who, they make their living off, or they make the ends meet off the sweat of his brow. Just very like everyman about this couple.
Yeah. And then wackiness ensues after that. So there's these demons on ATVs and motorcycles. We don't know if they're real demons, but they're definitely come off like some supernatural motherfuckers. They are called upon by this weird cult leader. They kill Mandy and torture Nicolas Cage's character. Then he goes to get his bloody revenge, and a bloody revenge it is. Borrowing from Joe Bob Briggs, who we've mentioned on this. There's an amazing chainsaw foo fight in the movie.
Yes.
There's a lot of weird stuff. So much there's so much weird stuff thrown at you that by the time the fucking tiger shows up, you're like, yeah, of course there's a tiger. Why? Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
But it's a good film. Everybody I've recommended it to has been like, oh yeah, that was really good. Like that was very different than what I was expecting. And I'll tell you, in 2018, I really don't feel that there's any greater praise that can be heaped upon a film than someone saying, "Oh, I didn't expect that," or "That's nothing like I would have thought."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we live in the era of the turnkey superhero movies, where they're quite honestly all the same.
Yes. That is, oh man, don't get me started. We'll go for another hour. Don't get me wrong. I love a lot of them.
I love them too, but I mean, like, let's stop acting like, oh, did you see Captain America 3? Like, yeah, it was just like Captain America 2, and like, it's
the best one, you son of a bitch. You had to use Civil War, my favorite of the bunch, as the example.
The Winter Soldier was a far better film.
Okay, Winter Soldier was great. But I can't. Yeah. See, now we're doing it. Now we're fucking in this. No.
See, but that's just it. That's just it. Was Captain America? Oh, was it Captain America: Civil War? Because I thought it was Avengers 2.5. That's what it felt like to me.
Sure. I mean, it didn't really matter to me what it was called. What I just loved was that it was, a take on the Civil War storyline, and I dug it for that. And I dug all the fighting and the cameos.
Very loose take on the Civil War storyline.
Yeah. But I loved it. So anyway, Mandy, yes, surprises. I think you're right. Like it is, 2018, especially in a genre like horror where you've got people like us who have been watching for, a few decades now. You've seen a lot. It's not easy to kind of surprise you. And to have a movie that just kind of like, manages to pull that off a bit. And while it's not perfect, there's a lot of hype out there for Mandy where people are just like in all capital letters, like, oh my God, a lot of that on Twitter that I saw, and I don't know that it quite warrants that kind of reaction. I mean, I guess it depends on who you are and what you've seen and what your expectations were. I get it; it's all relative.
Well, it's that people just want to people want to overreact in either one way or the other. That tends to be the default these
Sure,
days.
that's true. Yeah, there's a lot of hyperbole on the internet now. It seems to be the norm rather than the exception. But yeah, Mandy's legit worth a watch, I think. And like I said, it was hard to find at the time because I'd heard, oh, it's in theaters, but not everywhere. It's in like a dozen cities or something. And
Yeah, it was released digitally at the exact same time as the theatrical.
yeah, there was no way to rent it though for me. Like at least not that I found. I don't know how you saw it, but I ended up paying for it. I think I spent $20 to see it and watch it on my phone on a plane. I mean, I downloaded it before we even left the house. It wasn't like a limitation of the plane. It was that I chose to watch it on my phone that way. I don't regret spending that money at all.
I feel bad that you watched it on a phone.
Yeah, well, I've actually I've watched it on my TV at home since then, but my first viewing was on the phone. But yeah, there were scenes I had to watch again on a big screen, so I fired it up. But
I can't. I'm sorry. That's just cinema sin, man. Like watching a movie on your phone. Oh,
hey, man, I'm that kid who makes do.
I guess.
No, seriously. We will talk about this more with the video game section of our horror discussion here about making do. But yeah, like that's something that I have always kind of like done with TV and movies and stuff. I'm the guy who will watch something on a phone because it's the way to watch it at the moment, or I'll watch it. I certainly appreciate seeing stuff in the theater when I can. Like I had to go see the new Halloween in the theater. I wanted to, right? And
sure.
I'm glad I did. But yeah, I'll fucking play the Switch version of Fortnite, which is the worst version of Fortnite. But like, hey, it's portable Fortnite, so I'll play it, right? Or like Dark Souls is another good example. Like I'll do that too on Switch because it's fucking portable Dark Souls, and I can get over the fact that it's 30 frames per second and not even locked, and like the textures are a downgrade even from the original version in some cases and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know that I'm doing the best way of articulating my thought here, but like I will put up with shit for entertainment.
All right, fine. Sorry. I just,
I'm pickier with my music. That's where I draw the line. Like I have to have a good pair of headphones if I'm going out running. I cannot have the Skull Candy headphones if I'm out on a run or something.
Those things are atrocious.
Yeah, no, I've got to have like nice headphones for listening to music. I guess that's my one crux.
I'm just I'm just a snobby quality bitch no matter what we're talking about, be it headphones, speakers, TVs.
You are. I forget that about you sometimes.
Yeah, I'm a girl of expensive taste, man.
So okay, overall recommendation on Mandy from you, yeah?
If you're a fan of the horror genre, or you like challenging films, and I don't mean challenging like difficult, I mean challenging like this movie is it's very visual stimulation happening. It's a lot of it is atmospheric. You're not going to get handed a linear plot. If you enjoy those kinds of films, absolutely, you've already seen it. If you do enjoy a horror film or something that's a little out of the box, check it out by all means. That first half of the movie is might be a grind for you, but like I said, once it picks up, it doesn't stop. It does get a little trippy, it does get a little hard to follow. But overall, it's a quality film. I think it's important, and I think it's important these days, to support movies like this that actually have something to say, that aren't just the latest reboot and or superhero sequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost feels like experimental at times in that movie.
It's like an incredibly well-made student film almost.
Sure. Yeah. And there's just stuff where you can appreciate it outside of the film, just as a fan of like film and cinematography and things like that, right? Like, there's a particular scene where the cult leader is talking to Mandy.
Mhm.
And
yeah, that's fucking trippy as shit.
Yeah, it's a close-up of his face as he's talking, and the room that he's in is all red lighting, so it's just like red and black are the only colors on the screen, and it's just his face, and as he's talking, his face is slowly morphing into Mandy's face, and then you're looking at Mandy as she's listening to him talk, and then it's morphing back to him, and it's just kind of like the way that it's done. It doesn't sound nearly as interesting hearing myself like try to explain it as it is when you're kind of watching it. But yeah, I mean, it's not like you're gonna have like you're not gonna have like a religious moment or anything watching these things, but they're just like something that you don't see all the time. It's different. It's like
It's
interesting.
filmmaking. It's
Yeah.
filmmaking.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just
It's something that's lacking in a lot of things these days.
it's just cool too. You know, it's just there's a lot of cool in Mandy that I like.
Yeah, yeah. A visual. I mean, like the story is not gonna. It's not gonna blow your mind. The story is
Right.
actually incredibly basic. It really is a movie that gets by on its jaw-dropping cinematography and
Mhm.
visual storytelling.
Mm-hmm. And just like gonzo like violence at times.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's certainly there. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
where it earns its horror chops.
Yeah
No pun
definitely.
intended. All right,
right.
so on to part 3 of this nonsense.
Yeah we'll reconvene very soon because we're running out of time in the month of October.
I know it's crazy, right?
Yeah,
Where did it all go?
I know. I'm getting older too.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
God. On that note, hey,
Sorry
tell
to
the folks
bum
where they
y'all
can
out.
find you on the internets there, Andrew.
Yeah, find me on YouTube under Bare Metal Uno, or the URL is still Uno Il Nino. That'll follow me around forever, I'm sure. And that's about it. I'm not really worth seeing on Twitter. I just get mad about things on there. So
Myself, on the other hand, you can find me Twitter at Tim Wilsie, Wilsie, both Twitter and Instagram. If you want to see me post stuff about like artwork and various projects I've got working going at any given time. But yeah, as for this podcast, which you probably found it from there, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you again anyway, baremetalgaming.com. And you can subscribe to us through all the normal channels there. And hey, tell your friends if you enjoy the show. Obviously word of mouth is worth a lot. Podcast recommend. There's a ton of podcasts out there these days. So recommendations, I feel, are one of the strongest ways to kind of help others find quality programming. So if you enjoy the show, let someone know.
yeah, definitely.
And I think that just about does it for the horror part 2. We will be back real soon with part 3 of this nonsense, where we talk about hopefully the last of the movies on our list. There's still a few more, but we're actually going to let Andrew talk about video games, and a lot of these I'm not going to have a ton to say outside of the old Nintendo games that you've got listed, maybe Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
So thanks to everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time.
Latest.